Hi, this is Deena Thomson, author of Fallen Poppies, and this is Chapter 21. And this is Chapter 22.
Chapter 21. The day came when Todd, Carter, and Adam were to arrive with their families. JoBeth dressed the children in their best church clothes. Shauna and Oliver had done well in the city and dressed their children in very modern attire. She liked their garments and made a mental note to make similar outfits for her children. "I am so excited," giggled Shauna as she helped JoBeth pack a large basket they planned to bring to their picnic. JoBeth examined the beautiful woman Shauna had turned into. She had cut her long, pale hair into a short bob just under her chin, making her seem years older and more sophisticated than JoBeth remembered. When JoBeth protested, Shauna laughed and said it was modern and that she was too young to be old-fashioned. Shauna had changed in many ways from the girl she had once been. "I don't remember the rest of the group as well as you and the guys, but I do have vague memories of either Todd or Adam buying me one of my favorite dolls." "That was Adam. The gang wanted you to have a normal home with the things little girls should have," JoBeth said, remembering back in time to a group of teens trying to raise a 5-year-old girl properly. Shauna shook her head, her bob swaying back and forth. "I do remember Jonah. He gave me an apple a day to keep the doctor away." "Yes," JoBeth chuckled, recollecting Jonah's inviting spirit. "You used to follow him around like a lost puppy. He loved you so much." "I adored him. He was inextricably intertwined with my childhood," Shauna declared resolutely. "Oliver sometimes asks me about him, if he was happy before he died." JoBeth stopped what she was doing and looked at Shauna. "He was the best of us." She placed a bowl of fried chicken into a new basket. Shauna nodded in agreement. "A blessing to have known. Just like I am glad to have known you and Alan." "Glad to know us?" JoBeth asked, spreading butter on a piece of bread. "We are just plain country folks. Nothing we do is out of the ordinary. Look at you and Oliver. You all look so glamorous and prosperous. No one would ever guess how you two started life out." "What?" Shauna stopped her packing, giving JoBeth a stern examination. "You have the perfect family. You have beautiful children, and you are madly in love with your husband." "That is true, but sometimes I get bored." JoBeth sighed, putting down her butter knife. She wiped a strand of long brown hair out of her hazel eyes. She felt guilty for how she spoke about her life with Alan and the children, but could not help the words that escaped her mouth. "You should move to the city," Shauna said with concern. "I think you need the hustle and bustle of city life." She picked up the sandwich JoBeth had made and took a big bite out of it, trying to lighten the mood. "What is it like?" JoBeth asked, curiosity winning over her. "Exciting," Shauna said as her face lit up. "Beautiful clothes, movies, and sometimes you even see movie stars." "Movie stars? You must be kidding. You have actually seen a moving picture?" "Uh-huh, and they have the best dances." Shauna put down her sandwich and began to move her feet in a sequence of light, quick steps, gracefully shifting her weight in time with a barely audible tune she hummed. She paused, smiled encouragingly at JoBeth, and repeated the dance from the beginning. "Try it, JoBeth." JoBeth tentatively followed, her movements choppy and uncertain. The two laughed, so comfortable in each other's presence that she was not embarrassed by her lack of experience. "It's so exciting. Every day is a new adventure." Shauna composed herself, returning to her half-eaten sandwich. "It sounds wonderful." JoBeth sighed, picking up her knife again. "But Alan loves it here. He has his work, our home. We always said we would give our children this type of life. What says you can't still give them a good home in the city? Shauna said, offended. She blushed from her outburst. Much had changed since she had become a married woman. The shy, quiet child of her youth was gone, replaced with the strong woman she now was. You have a life too, JoBeth. How do you expect your family to be happy if you are not? Besides, do Daniel and Donna look deprived? She took JoBeth's hand encouragingly. If I thought the city would hurt my babies, would I live there? You taught me how to be a good mother and to take chances. JoBeth turned away from Shauna and looked out the window. It was fine to think of living the life Shauna did, but a different story to actually expect Alan and the children to up and leave their home just because she was bored with life. I just don't know, but I think you might be right. I should hint at the idea to Alan. JoBeth wiped the sweat from her brow. The seed of want had planted itself in her heart, and it was going to be hard to stifle its growth, now that it was rooted there. She watched a little hummingbird fly by the window and felt her own wings beginning to stretch. Could she convince Alan to move to the city with Oliver and Shauna? It would be so much fun. We would all be together again, just two little mamas, Shauna chortled, putting a reassuring arm around JoBeth in the same way she had comforted her when Shauna had been a little girl. I miss you so dearly. JoBeth's hand reached for a strand of Shauna's blunt blonde hair. Shauna clasped her hand in return. Sometimes I cry at night because I miss you all so much. Shauna placed her head on JoBeth's shoulder. I need you and Alan, especially you. You are my mother in every sense. You took care of me and protected me, saved me from a horrible fate. I wouldn't have the life I've lived if it weren't for you. She lowered her eyes. The only thing I regret about marrying Oliver is that I had to move away from my family, my mama, my best friend. It hurts terribly. Oliver knows it, and it makes him feel bad. Oh, Shauna, JoBeth sighed, brushing away the tear rolling down Shauna's fair face. Just then, Oliver and Alan came storming into the kitchen. They're coming up the driveway, Alan said, unable to hide his excitement. It seemed everyone owned a car nowadays. Even JoBeth and Alan had purchased one of the automobiles. Shauna took Donna from Oliver's arms and went to stand on the porch. Alan and JoBeth followed, clutching each other's hands. Wide-eyed and eager to meet these strangers they had heard so much about, the children ran up the porch steps. 3 vehicles rumbled up the dirt road, following in procession, grounding to a halt in front of the house. The doors opened, and 3 men, followed by women and children, piled out of the vehicles. Their eyes darted around nervously, taking in their new surroundings. JoBeth's heart raced as her hands flew to her quivering lips. A low moan escaped her mouth. Oh, they are home, she said softly, turning towards Alan. They are finally home. Alan nodded, trying to force back his emotions. He tenderly draped his arm around JoBeth's shoulders and steered her down the stairs to welcome their long-awaited guests. Adam, Carter, and Todd had stuck together over the years since they had parted ways long ago. Adam met Caroline and married her, with the 2 of them now having an expanding family of 12-year-old and 7-year-old sons, with a 3rd child on the way. Carter, too, settled down with a wife and a family of 2 boys, aged 9 and 6, as well as a 7-year-old daughter who loved to laugh and play. Todd found his soulmate in a shy young woman. They were engaged to be married. Their lives had turned out well for the boys they had parted ways with so long ago. They were left devastated by the tragic deaths of Jonah and Tamara. Alan and JoBeth decided not to tell their guests that Tamara and Oliver had a child, and that child was Mara Joy. Shauna and Oliver complied with their wishes. When all the children were asleep in the loft, the adults settled in around a roaring fire in the stone fireplace. The living room was warm and cozy, and the adults felt relaxed and content with one another. "Mara Joy's a beauty," Carter said, sipping a steaming cup of tea. Alan and JoBeth smiled, pleased. "You must be pretty proud of her, Oliver." JoBeth grasped Alan's hand tightly, causing pain to shoot up his arm. Her nails dug into his flesh, causing circles of white to surround her fingers embedded into Alan's flesh. He gently pried her grasp from his hand and gave her a gentle squeeze. With his eyes, he told her not to panic. Oliver said, his eyes nervously darting to a frightened Alan and JoBeth. "Mara Joy is Alan and JoBeth's daughter." "Oh, sorry. I just thought she looked—" Carter coughed, embarrassed. His wife touched his knee and gave him a warning look. The discomfort passing between the two couples hadn't gone unnoticed. Carter's mind began to work, wondering if something had happened between JoBeth and Oliver, but there was something else. Something familiar about Mara Joy. Something he couldn't put his finger on. Carter's wife glared at him once more. She knew he was trying to figure out the obvious. Mara Joy was Oliver's daughter, and if the two couples wanted to keep the facts secret, who was she to say anything? It was none of their business, and if Carter didn't stop it, the lovely visit would end terribly, which was something Carter, Adam, and Todd would regret. "Well," JoBeth cut into everyone's thoughts. She knew what was going through their minds. How could Mara Joy be Alan and her child when she didn't look like either of them? All eyes turned gratefully to JoBeth. The atmosphere had become increasingly uncomfortable. "We finally have found a safe place to be together." Alan smiled proudly at his wife and gave her hand another reassuring squeeze. JoBeth could always get out of a bad jam. "I think we have done all right," he chuckled, helping her along. "Yes, I never thought we would come this far," said Todd, who sat beside his fiancée, Nancy. "Well," Adam said, lighting a fresh cigarette, "we deserve it." "Hear, hear," Oliver cheered, raising his glass of wine. "We went through hell, but we lived to tell about it. Everything worked out in the end." JoBeth, her voice trembling, looked into the eyes of each of her friends in turn. "I want you all to know I love you, and you've always been with us in our hearts," she said, her chin quivering as she fought back the tears. She swallowed hard, remembering the fateful day Alan and the others had discovered her and Shauna huddled and freezing in that old abandoned house. Tears blurred Shauna's vision as memories flooded her. Without a word, JoBeth extended her hand to Shauna in silent understanding. Oliver joined them, linking hands with Shauna, as Alan took JoBeth's other hand. One by one, each of them joined hands, completing the circle. Warmth and support followed between them in the unspoken bond of their friendship. JoBeth felt a familiar tightness in her chest as she looked around at her scattered family gathered together. She could almost sense Jonah and Tamara's spirits in the room, watching them with approving smiles on their faces, happy they were finally all home. Joanna stared down between the wooden railings of the loft, her toes curled up against the rough-hewn boards. Below her, the adults were linked in a circle, their hands clasped tightly while they spoke in low tones. She strained to make out their hushed words, trying to hear more talk about Mara Joy. She turned to Constance, who was crouched beside her with wide eyes, reflecting the faint flickering light of the fireplace. The girls had snuck out from the room full of sleeping children and made their way to the railing to watch the strange scene below them. "What do you think Carter meant?" Joanna whispered. "I don't know," Constance said in earnest, brushing her soft blonde curls out of her face. "Why would he think Oliver was Mara Joy's father?" Joanna whispered, staring straight ahead at nothing. "And why did Mama and Pappy look so frightened?" Joanna turned her cat eyes to her mother. Jo Beth had that same look, the same look she did when Oliver and Shauna had moved away. Joanna still remembered when she listened to their departing conversation, and she had played out that night in her mind over and over again. What was this talk about the woman named Tamara? And how come everybody thought Mara Joy was Oliver's daughter and not Mama and Pappy's? Things were starting to make Joanna wonder about her older sister, making her wonder if she was her sister at all. Part 2. And Their Children Shall Lead Them. Chapter 22. "But, Mama, please," Mara Joy pleaded, stomping in the doorway of the kitchen. "I won't get in any trouble, I promise." She looked at her mother in disbelief. There was no way she was missing this party. Her sister Joanna sat at the kitchen table eating breakfast with their little brother Alan Michael and their little sister Pauline. Constance, their other sister, never ate breakfast and was already at school studying. Mama's back was turned to them, flipping eggs on the stove. Pappy had just left for work with Uncle Oliver, a job he claimed was not farming but was better than working in the mills, which was the job he had years ago before he moved their family to the city to live near Shauna and Oliver. "You are only 15 years old," said her mother. "I don't think you are old enough to go to a party with boys." Jo Beth sighed, wiping her hand across her forehead. Mara Joy was relentless with her pleadings. "Besides, you're to help Joanna with the children tonight. Your father and I are going dancing." Jo Beth looked dreamy for a moment. Her eyes softened into a faraway stare as she imagined twirling around the room in Alan's arms. She could feel the warmth of his touch, his tender hand on the small of her back, and the way her heart raced when their eyes met. Their 15-year marriage had not dulled the thrill of his embrace. She felt her skin tingle with anticipation. Thinking of him made her cheeks flush and her stomach flip. Throughout their journey together, she was amazed at how Alan had always been there, strong, reliable, loving, and kind. Fate brought them together, and she was grateful that their paths had crossed. Without him, she didn't know what she would have done. Jo Beth looked at the red-faced Mara Joy. Her dark black hair framed in ringlets around her perfect complexion, while her piercing blue eyes danced with frustration. Mara Joy began to cry. "It's fine and dandy if you go out and have fun. Who cares about me and what I want to do? Don't you understand how important this is to me?" She stomped her foot angrily. Life seemed so unfair. How could her mother be so insensitive to her needs? All her mother thought about was herself. "Don't you get lippy with me, Missy, or I'll swat your behind good and hard." Jo Beth held her spatula out threateningly to her daughter. "Believe me, girl, I will." Mara Joy released a theatrical sigh, eyes downcast and pouty lips quivering. "Pooh, I never get to do anything." She pushed her lip outward. "Girls your age shouldn't be thinking of boys and parties anyway." Jo Beth laughed suddenly. She couldn't help herself. The girl looked irresistibly cute when she pouted. Mara Joy's eyes lit up mischievously. "Why not, Mama?" She giggled, knowing she had won. Her mother would let her go if she played her cards right. "You and Pappy got married, not much older than me." "Oh, you are a bold one." Jo Beth swatted playfully with the sticky egg flipper. The girl dodged her mother, laughing. "All right, you can go," she relented. "Thank you, Mama," Mara Joy squealed, squeezing her mother's shoulders. "I love you so much. You are the best mother in the world." She sighed, hugging her mother tight. "But you are to be home by 9, and I will call to make sure you are here," JoBeth said, hugging her back, letting her love for her daughter envelop her. "Oh, Mama, don't you trust me?" Mara Joy angled her eyebrow wickedly at her pretty mother. "Get to school, you bad girl, before I change my mind." JoBeth gently pushed Mara Joy from her grasp. "Come on," Mara Joy said to the astonished children sitting around the kitchen table. Her voice was deep and commanding as she spoke. Joanna felt her face flush as she slowly stood up from the table, her chair scraping the tile floor. No matter how many times she watched her sister effortlessly get her way, it still amazed her that she could do it so easily.